Privet, ja, Heinbach, it's good to have you back. What I have here is likely one of the best drum machines the Soviet Union ever produced. And I would argue it is one of the best drum machines ever made for a certain type of sound. The bleeps and klonks of breakbeat, electro and braindance. This is the Formanta UDM, also known as the Rokton. It has been described as Richard D. James in a box and the socialist brother of Tier 909 drum machine, though Formanta can pretend to be 909 if you said it right, but 909 can never act in Formanta's stead. The UDM combines two things that to my knowledge are rarely seen together in a Simmons-like drum module: external trigger control and preset rhythms. You can play it externally with a drum set or this rather unusual guitar controller, which I would love to get my hands on someday, so if one of you has it, get in touch. It also has the classic rock 1-5 rhythms, rumba, tango, etc. pre-programmed. And you're listening to these right now. They sound so unusual because this is a fully fledged drum synthesizer. 5 of the 7 voices are freely assignable, so you can get endless variations by synthesizing new sounds for each of the preset rhythms. And the sounds are rather special because it has a filter that is similar to the one on the legendary Polyvox, which adds a lot of oomph. You can find these rhythms and many more sounds on my Patreon, as well as music from this video and tons more sound packs. Before I get into more details, here's some history. There's little information out on this machine and Soviet synths in general. Most of the instruments were made in the same factories that produced items for the military under a 5-year plan. The Formanta Kachkana radio plant was one of these, in which the UDM was made. That explains why all the Soviet instruments have this look of military ruggedness, though internally they are oftentimes not as rugged, as I had to find out with my synthesizers. The engineers had to work with whatever components the 5-year plan assigned to them, so it's little wonder that each UDM is rumored to sound just a little bit different. And I've seen similar things with old Octava mics, where there were all kinds of different components depending on what was available at the time. The UDM was engineered by Igor Fedusev and designed by Sergei Naumov, and it was produced from the mid-80s to the mid-90s. In general, instruments like the UDM and the Polyvox were too expensive for an individual, so they often went to musical institutions. I have no idea how popular the UDM was with Soviet musicians, but if it was anywhere like it was in East Germany, Western instruments were always in higher demand and were thought to be cooler. Let's look at the functions. In this section, you control the preset rhythms. You can set the tempo and the sensitivity. Rhythm selection is done via this field. What you're hearing are the sounds as they are intended, but you can switch to the synthesis mode, where you can adjust all these knobs freely via this button. A single parameter lock in Soviet Russia. I love that. These switches here will act as mutes. Here is a rather decent sounding headphone output with a filter. And one thing that you need to know is if you want to actually hear something, you need to turn this switch on. But this helps probably in practicing, because you can check your sounds before and send them to the main mixer once you're sure they're good. But now let's look at the synthesis. The first 5 voices are all identical. They might have slightly different names, but they are in fact the same form of synthesis. So when I talk about this one, the same thing holds true for all of these. The first parameter you can adjust is sensitivity, which will define to what trigger level this will react. The second one is tone, up and down. Next is envelope. Here we adjust the shape of the envelope. This adjusts between the tone and white noise that is triggered at the same time. And this will add the filter. This is rumored to be the same one as in the Polyvox, and it does kind of sound like it, but there's no resonance, so it's hard to know, because what is the Polyvox filter without the crazy resonance? This parameter will add a little accent. That makes the sound just ever so more punchy. And this one here is just the level control. The UDS does not have single outputs, but what it does have is trigger inputs for each of the voices, jack outputs, and not only the usual Soviet DIN outputs. Since the UDS accepts 5-volt triggers, it's easy to sequence it externally, and I'm using my Modular for this. you run those triggers at audio rate, the UDS will become probably the best drum drone machine I've ever heard. I've done my best to give you a lot of sound examples, and I hope you can hear why I love it. It just has a very dry, punchy and direct sound. There are a few things that are bad about the UDS. First of all, it's not the quietest machine. There is quite a lot of self-noise present. Then, due to its age and the way it was produced, when you get one of these, you will probably need at least a recap and a thorough cleaning to get it running perfectly. Unless you buy from a seller you know who does that for you already. The used price is between $250 and $600. Another thing that makes this hard to work, unmodded at least, in a modern studio environment is that there is no MIDI on this. So in this example I had to play all the synthesizers by hand, which is something I actually really enjoy doing. Vintage Smintage, a modern unit that is similar that I recommend is the Gentle Wham, and I made a video on that here. I have to say I love this machine and it's earned a prominent spot in my studio, right next to the Modular in the Soviet corner. If you have more information, be it anecdotal or pictures or videos or links about how Soviet instruments were produced, please write it down in the comments. I would love to learn more because it's really hard to find information. That's it for this video. Thank you all for watching. I'll be seeing you in the next one.